The first thing to break through the haze was the smell of cedar and rain-soaked earth. Then came the sounds, hushed conversations, and the lonely cry of a wolf that seemed to resonate up from the very ground beneath me. My eyes fluttered open to the sight of heavy, unfamiliar rafters spanning a high ceiling. The sheets tangled in my fists were not my own, in a bedroom I had never seen. A frantic pulse hammered at my ribs as I struggled to remember where I was. My son, Liam. Was he safe? The last thing I recalled was leaving him with my sister for the weekend, promising him a souvenir from my trip. Then, driving the winding forest highway, the deluge of rain turning the world into a blur. After that, only blackness. I pushed myself up, a dull throb echoing in my skull. Morning light sliced through the tall windows, catching motes of dust in its golden beams. The room was large, but simply furnished with dark wood and a vast painting of a primeval forest. On the bedside table sat a glass of water and a silver pendant, crafted into the shape of a wolf howling at a crescent moon. An inexplicable pull drew me to it. My fingers trembled as I picked up the cool metal. It felt deeply familiar, a memory just out of reach. My mother, Fiona, had worn one just like it. Before she vanished into this same forest 5 years ago, leaving only questions in this pendant, which I'd thought lost forever. Footsteps and voices grew louder outside the thick wooden door. I quickly tucked the pendant into the pocket of the flannel shirt I was wearing, another item that wasn't mine, and swung my legs to the side of the bed. "She is stirring," a woman's voice declared from the hall. It wasn't a guess, it was a certainty. How could she know? The door opened to reveal a woman with eyes the color of moss and weathered skin, flanked by 2 others. They moved with a liquid grace, an air of predation clinging to them as their gazes swept over me. Despite their casual attire of jeans and warm sweaters, they seemed wild, untamed. "You are safe here," the woman stated, her tone devoid of warmth. "I am Moira, the pack's healer." Pack healer? The term felt foreign, nonsensical. Where am I? I have to get back to the edge of the mattress. What happened to me? What is an omega? Moira's expression softened almost imperceptibly. The trauma of the accident seems to have awakened something within you. A dormant trait in certain human bloodlines can be triggered by such events. An image of my mother flashed through my mind, her constant warnings about this forest, about the full moon, about the secrets she refused to share. Warnings I'd dismissed when I finally worked up the courage to come looking for answers about her disappearance. "Are you telling me I'm a werewolf?" The word felt absurd on my tongue, but the look that passed between the 3 of them sent a chill down my spine. "Your mother never explained your heritage, did she?" Moira asked softly. My breath hitched. "You knew my mother?" "Everyone in Whisperwood knew Fiona," the man's voice rumbled. "She was meant to be our alpha female before she fled." The room seemed to spin. My mother, quiet, anxious Fiona, who always seemed to be looking over her shoulder, had been one of them? "An omega is a rare gift," the younger woman added, a note of envy in her voice. "The anchor of the pack. You will sense the emotions of others, bring calm to their turmoil." "I don't want to sense anyone's emotions," I snapped, getting to my feet. "I want to go home. My son is waiting for me." The 3 exchanged another glance, this one laced with tension. "That is not possible," Moira said flatly. "The change is permanent. An unmated omega is too precious to be left unprotected." Unprotected? The word made my skin crawl. "I'm not a piece of property. I'm a mother." A disturbance erupted outside. Raised voices, heavy footsteps, a tone of urgent deference. The 3 wolves stiffened in unison, their attention fixed on the door. "He is coming," the young woman whispered, her voice a mix of awe and fear. He must have felt her awaken. "Who?" I demanded, but I could already feel it. A presence like an approaching thunderstorm, crackling with energy. The fine hairs on my arms stood on end as something deep inside me resonated. A chord struck in perfect harmony. Kalen vibrated through the room, settling deep in my bones as if it had always belonged there. The pendant in my pocket seemed to burn against my skin. The others in the room had averted their eyes and retreated, creating a clear path between us as Kalen stepped inside. "You don't even know me," I whispered, fighting against the inexplicable magnetic pull I felt toward him. His lips twisted into a smirk that was all predator. "I have known you were mine since you crossed my border 3 days ago. I have been waiting for you to wake." He reached out, his fingertips hovering an inch from my face. "Waiting for you to become who you were always meant to be." I stumbled back, my legs hitting the bed frame. "I'm not yours. I'm a mother. I came here looking for answers about my own mother, not for this." A flicker of surprise, maybe even respect, crossed his features at my defiance. Behind him, Moira drew a sharp breath. No one, it seemed, spoke to the Alpha King this way. "Fiona's daughter," Kalen said, his voice laced with new understanding. "That explains a great deal." His gaze swept over me again, assessing. "But not everything." Before I could reply, the floorboards trembled. Urgent shouts echoed from outside. Kalen's posture shifted instantly, his focus snapping from me to the unseen threat. "Border breach," he snarled at Moira. "Northern Quadrant? Hunters?" she asked, already moving toward the door. "Worse," his jaw clenched. "Shadowfen pack. They must have sensed her awakening too." His gaze cut back to me, hot and intense. "They will not have her." The possessiveness in his voice should have enraged me, but it was drowned out by the palpable fear that suddenly saturated the air, not from Kalen, but from the others. Even in my newly awakened state, I could feel their terror at the name Shadowfen. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice holding steadier than I felt. Kalen's expression became a thundercloud. "War." He reached for me again, and this time his warm, calloused fingers closed the corridor, his grip on my wrist firm but not crushing. "Stay close," he commanded, his voice a low rumble. And despite every rational thought screaming in protest, I did. The hallway outside was a scene of controlled chaos. People hurried past, their faces set with grim purpose. Some carried archaic-looking weapons, while others shifted before my very eyes into monstrous forms that made my breath catch. They became creatures halfway between human and wolf, their bodies twisting in a transformation that should have been horrific, but was somehow fluid and natural. Kalen's hand remained locked around my wrist, guiding me through the tumult. His body acted as a living shield, creating a space around me. The contact sent strange waves of warmth up my arm, an intimacy that was both terrifying and comforting. I could feel his pulse against my skin, a steady, powerful rhythm that betrayed none of the surrounding panic. "The safe room," he ordered a hulking man who materialized at his side. "Have it prepared." "It's ready, Alpha," the man replied, his eyes flicking to me with curiosity before he lowered his gaze in respect. We descended a wide staircase into what looked like the great hall of a massive hunting lodge. Soaring ceilings were crisscrossed with exposed timber beams, and a colossal stone hearth dominated one wall. Through the tall windows, I saw glimpses of the dense forest and towering mountains, and of figures racing through the trees, some on 2 legs, others on 4. "What is going on?" I asked, struggling to keep up with Kalen's long strides. "The Shadowfen pack has been our enemy for generations," he answered without breaking his pace. "They covet what is not theirs. That now includes you." The reality of it was still settling in, feeling more like a fever dream than my life. Kalen stopped suddenly in the middle of the hall, turning to face me. The pack members moving around us gave our position a wide berth, as if we were enclosed in an invisible bubble. "An Omega has not been born to any pack in over 50 years, he said, his voice low and serious. "You are not just rare, you are practically a myth. Your presence strengthens the pack, brings stability." His eyes darkened. "To a pack like Shadowfen, which is ruled by brutality, system. Panic, agony, raw desperation, they washed over me, threatening to pull me under." "Breathe," Kalen commanded, his hand moving to the small of my back, a steadying pressure. "This is part of being an Omega. You feel what they feel." "Make it stop," I whispered, bile rising in my throat. "You can help him." Moira appeared at our side, her earlier detachment replaced by a focused urgency. "Come." Before I could argue, she was guiding me toward the injured man, who had been laid out on a long table. His breathing was shallow and ragged, blood soaking his shirt from deep, vicious claw marks across his chest. Up close, his pain was a physical force that made my vision swim. "Place your hands on him," Moira instructed. "Focus on peace, on calm." "I don't know how," I protested, my voice shaking. "Your instincts will," Kalen said from behind me, his presence a solid anchor in the storm of foreign emotion. Hesitantly, I laid my trembling hands on the man's shoulders. His skin was feverishly hot, and his agony felt like a current trying to drag me down. But then something inside me shifted. A connection sparked between us, and I found myself instinctively pushing a sense of calm through that link. Like pouring cool water on a fire, the man's frantic breathing slowed, and the tense lines of his face began to relax. The pain didn't vanish, but it receded enough for Moira to begin her work, cleaning and stitching the wounds. "Thank you, Omega," he murmured, his eyes fluttering open to meet mine with a reverence that felt entirely unearned. I pulled my hands back, stunned. I hadn't done anything, not really. "You eased his torment," Kalen said quietly. "That is the gift of an Omega." "A gift I never asked for," I wanted to scream, but the words died on my lips as I saw the profound gratitude in the injured man's eyes. "Alpha," a voice called from the doorway. A woman stood there, her clothes ripped, a streak of blood on her face. "They're massing at the northern ridge, at least 30 of them." Kalen's expression hardened into granite. "They've brought their full strength. They must have been waiting for her to change." Confidence surging through me. The silver pendant in my pocket seemed to grow warmer, pulsing faintly against my leg. "Tell me about my mother, please." Kalen's gaze swept over the chaos in the hall, then returned to me. "Now is not the time. It might be the only time we have, if those Shadowfen wolves are as dangerous as everyone seems to believe." I held his gaze, refusing to be intimidated by the raw power he radiated. Something akin to respect flickered in his eyes. "Your mother was promised to my father," he said at last. "She was an alpha female, strong, fierce, adored by the pack. But the night before their bonding ceremony, she vanished." His voice hardened. "Many thought she betrayed us, that she ran to Shadowfen. Others believed hunters took her." "She never said anything about this," I murmured, struggling to reconcile this image with the timid, cautious woman who had raised me. "She was always so scared, always watching her back." "She had good reason," Kalen replied. "If either Shadowfen or our own pack had found her with a half-human daughter who might one day inherit her abilities." Another crash, this one much closer, was followed by the sound of shattering glass and vicious snarling. Kalen shoved me behind him in an instant, his body tensing as he faced the new threat. 3 enormous wolves, their fur matted with gore, burst through a side entrance, their teeth bared. Behind them came more fighters, half-shifted monstrosities that were the worst of both worlds, their movements jerky and unnatural, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. "Shadowfen," Kalen growled, and before my eyes, his form began to ripple and change. Where the Alpha King had stood, a massive black wolf now crouched, his shoulders level with my chest. Only his silver eyes remained recognizable from his human form. He launched himself forward, meeting the first attacker with a force that shook the entire hall. Around me, others were shifting, Kalen's pack members transforming to defend their home. The air filled with
use your gift for, to keep their drug soldiers functional longer,
to prolong their suffering. The thought made me physically sick. I clutched the pendant in my pocket with my free hand, drawing a strange comfort from its familiar shape. Across the room, Kalen took down another enemy, but not before sharp claws raked across his flank, drawing blood. I felt his pain like a physical blow, making me gasp. "Focus," Moira commanded. "Use your connection to him. Lend him your strength." "I don't know how," I said desperately. "The same way you helped the injured warrior. Reach for him with your mind." It sounded insane, but I closed my eyes, trying to find that same thread of connection I'd felt before. For a moment, there was nothing but the chaos of the battle. Then suddenly, I felt him, a presence so powerful it almost knocked me off my feet. Kalen's consciousness was a raging bonfire of fierce protectiveness, fueled by righteous anger and something else. Something directed entirely at me. I pushed a sense of strength along that connection, trying to soothe his pain without dulling his fighting edge. His silver eyes found mine across the room, widening in surprise. I felt his acknowledgement, his gratitude, and underneath it, a possessiveness that should have terrified me, but instead felt like a shield. A snarl to my right shattered my concentration. A Shadowfen wolf had seen me. Its muzzle curled back from blood-flecked fangs as it charged. I raised the silver knife, knowing it was a pathetic defense against such a creature. But before it could reach me, another shape intercepted it. A sleek gray wolf that moved like lightning, bringing the attacker down with swift, brutal efficiency. When the gray wolf turned, her moss-green eyes met mine with a familiar intensity. Moira. She placed herself protectively in front of me as two more enemies closed in. I raised the knife again, determined not to be helpless, even as my limbs trembled with fear. Then, the pendant in my pocket grew searingly hot. I pulled it out with a gasp, my palm stinging as it flared with a brilliant silver-blue light. The approaching wolves skidded to a halt, whining and backing away from the glow.
same scarred face, his body lean and corded with muscle, his eyes cold and calculating.
"The prodigal daughter returns," he said, his voice a deceptively soft purr. "With Fiona's moonstone, no less. How very convenient." "Get out of my territory, Torin," Kalen growled beside me, his massive body coiled to strike. "Easy, Kalen," Torin smiled, showing teeth that remained unnaturally sharp. "I am merely here to welcome the Omega home." His gaze slid back to me. "She belongs with her mother's chosen pack, after all." The pendant pulsed in my hand as a horrifying suspicion began to form. "Where is my mother?" I demanded, stepping forward despite Kalen's warning rumble. Torin's smile widened. "Come to Shadowfen territory, and I will arrange a reunion." He gestured to his remaining fighters who began a strategic retreat toward the broken entrance. 3 days, little Omega. Then I will come for you. Unless you come to me first." With that, he shifted back into his wolf form and melted away with his pack, leaving a trail of destruction and wounded bodies behind them. Kalen shifted back to his human form, also naked, turning to face me with a thunderous expression. "You will not go to him." "But if he has my mother, he is lying," Kalen cut in. "Fiona would never ally with Shadowfen. Never. But I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes, the shadow of an old wound. He wasn't certain, and neither was I. The pendant continued to glow in my palm, casting an ethereal blue light on Kalen's grim features. He reached out slowly, his fingers hovering over it. "The moonstone was lost when she left," he said quietly. "It has been gone for 20 years. How do you have it?" I closed my fingers around the warm silver. "It's been in my jewelry box my entire life. I never knew what it was." I met his gaze. "What is it, exactly?" Kalen's expression was unreadable. "The symbol of the Alpha's mate," he said, his eyes darkening. "The heart of the pack. And further proof that you were always meant to be mine." Night fell over Whisperwood, but it brought her, feeling numb as the day's impossible events finally began to catch up with me. My body ached with a profound exhaustion, but my mind was a whirlwind of questions. The moonstone now hung around my neck, its glow having subsided to a subtle shimmer that only became visible when I touched it. "How can I be this Omega?" I asked as Moira piled food onto a plate for me. "When I didn't even know your kind existed until this morning. Shouldn't there have been signs?" Moira's expression softened. "There probably were. Heightened senses, an unusual level of empathy, perhaps dreams of running under the full moon." She studied my face. "Your mother would have recognized them. She likely tried to suppress them. There are herbs, rituals, ways to delay the change." I thought back to the bitter tea my mother had made me drink every month, claiming it was for women's troubles. The strange charm she hung in our windows. The strict boundaries she'd set about where I was allowed to go. "She was trying to protect me from this," I murmured. "Or trying to keep you from your destiny," Moira countered, her tone neutral. "Eat. We can debate Fiona's motives later." I picked at the food, my appetite gone, watching the pack members around me. Despite the violence of the day, there was a raw beauty in their interactions, an easy familiarity, a sense of profound belonging that I had never known. Children darted between the tables, elders were served first with deep respect, and couples touched with a casual, confident intimacy. "The moonstone," I said, my hand going to the pendant. "Kalen said it's the symbol of the Alpha's mate. But my mother had it." "Fiona was to be the Alpha female, the king's mate," Moira confirmed. "When she fled, she took the moonstone with her. Some whispered she left specifically to steal its power." "And what do you believe?" I asked, watching her closely. Moira met my gaze, her own unreadable. "I believe there are always more sides to a story than the ones we are told. I believe Fiona had her reasons." She paused. "And my mother? Was that a lie too?" His silver eyes held mine. "I have sent my best scouts to gather intelligence. If Fiona is with Shadowfen, by choice or by force, we will know." It wasn't the comfort I craved, but it was honest, and I found myself appreciating that he didn't offer empty platitudes. "You should rest," he continued, reaching over and taking a piece of bread from my plate with a casual intimacy that sent a strange flutter through my chest. "Tomorrow I will show you our territory, explain what it means to be part of this pack." "I haven't agreed to be part of anything," I reminded him. His lips quirked. "And yet, you wear the moonstone." I touched the pendant defensively. "It was my mother's." "And now it is yours," he countered, "by blood and by right." Before I could form a retort, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A young wolf rushed in, his face etched with urgency as he searched for Kalen. "Alpha, we found someone. At the eastern perimeter." Kalen was on his feet in an instant. "Who?" The messenger's eyes darted to me, then back to his Alpha. "A woman. We thought she was human at first, but she bears your father's mark." The hall fell deathly silent. I felt the shock ripple through the pack, their collective emotions, hope, disbelief, suspicion, hitting me in a dizzying wave. "Where is she?" Kalen's voice was dangerously quiet. "The healing wing. Moira's apprentices are with her." Kalen turned to me, conflict warring in his expression. "Stay here," he commanded, then his tone softened. "Please." But I was already standing. The thought of my son Liam flashed in my mind. He deserved to know his grandmother. "If it's her," I said, my voice firm, "I'm coming with you." For a long moment I thought he would refuse, that he would use his alpha authority to force me to stay. Instead, he gave a short, sharp nod and extended his hand. I took it, ignoring the renewed whispers that followed us as we swept out of the dining hall. We moved quickly through the lodge, the young messenger leading us to a separate wing I hadn't seen. The air here was thick with the scent of herbs and antiseptics, smelling of medicinal poultices and blood. On a narrow bed in the center lay a woman, so thin she looked brittle. Her once golden hair was now streaked with gray, her face a roadmap of hardship. But even after all these years, even with the ravages of time and suffering, I would have known her anywhere. "Mom," I whispered, my voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered open. The same eyes I saw in my own reflection, though now clouded with pain. Recognition dawned, followed swiftly by sheer horror. "No," she rasped, trying to sit up. "No, you can't be here. You have to run." I rushed to her side, gathering her frail hand in mine. "Mom, it's okay. You're safe now. We're both safe." But she was shaking her head, her frantic gaze moving past me to Kalen. "You don't understand. They let me go. They let me escape." "Who did, Fiona?" Kalen asked, his voice gentle as he moved to stand beside me. "Shadowfen?" My mother let out a broken, rattling laugh. "Shadowfen is a puppet, just as your father was, just as we all are." Her eyes, desperate and wild, returned to me. "I tried so hard to keep you away from this life. I did everything I could to suppress your nature, to hide you from them." "From who, Mom?" I asked, my grip on her hand tightening. "The Council." She spat the word like a curse. "The ones who rule from the shadows, who play with our lives like pieces on a board." Her gaze fell to the moonstone at my neck, and fresh terror filled her eyes. "You're wearing it. Oh gods, you're wearing it." "It's just a necklace," I said, bewildered by her reaction. "It's always been in my jewelry box." "Because I hid it there," she whispered. "To keep it close, but dormant. As long as you never wore it, never activated it, they couldn't track you." Kalen's expression had grown dark. "The Council is a myth, Fiona. A story told to frighten pups." "Is it?" My mother's gaze was sharp with a feverish intensity. Said, its voice distorted into a synthetic metallic rasp. "And thanks you for activating the stone, little Omega. You have made finding you both so much easier." Kalen snarled, his body already beginning the shift. "You are not welcome in my territory." "Your territory?" The figure laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Your kind owns nothing. You merely borrow it until we require it." They moved in perfect, unnerving unison, drawing blades that gleamed silver in the dim light. Not just silver, I realized with a jolt of primal fear, but silver infused with wolfsbane, a poison that could kill a werewolf with a single scratch. Kalen lunged, half-shifted, a blur of savage grace. But the masked figures were impossibly fast, weaving around his attacks with an ease that spoke of centuries of practice. "Get Fiona out of here!" Kalen roared at me between blows. I tried to help my mother to her feet, but she was too weak, her body trembling violently. "Leave me," she begged. "Run, Eve, for your son. Run! I'm not leaving you, I said firmly. Not after I just found you. One of the masked figures broke away from the fight, advancing on us with deliberate, unhurried steps. How touching, it rasped, raising its blade. The reunion we have orchestrated for so long. The moonstone at my throat suddenly blazed with heat, pulsing with a blue light that flooded the room. The advancing figure recoiled, its glowing eyes narrowing. Impossible, it hissed. The stone answers to her will. My mother's expression transformed from fear to a fierce, burning pride. My daughter is more than you bargained for, she said, her voice finding a new strength. More than even I knew. I didn't understand what was happening, only that the pendant was reacting to my emotions, my terror, my desperation, my fierce resolve to protect my mother. Acting on pure instinct, I closed my hand around it, focusing all of that resolve into the stone. The blue light intensified, coalescing into a shimmering shield between us and our attacker. The masked figure staggered back, raising an arm to shield its eyes. "Kaelin!" I cried out. "The light! Use the light!" Something I believe was only a legend. The moonstone's true power awakened. His gaze moved from me to my mother. But only a bonded alpha pair should be able to wield it like that. My mother struggled to sit up, her eyes fixed on my face. "Unless the Omega is also an alpha female by birth," she said, her voice quiet but ringing with certainty. "Unless she is the last of a royal bloodline thought to be extinct." "Mom," I whispered, my head spinning. She gave me a sad smile. "I never told you about your father, Eve. How could I? He was Donovan, the last alpha of the Silvercrest pack, wiped out by the Council for their defiance." She reached out, her trembling fingers tracing my cheek. "You are not just an Omega, my darling. You are a royal alpha female, born with an Omega's gifts." "The first in 1,000 years," Kaelin breathed, his voice filled with awe. "The Balancer. The one from the ancient prophecy." "What prophecy?" I asked, feeling as if the ground were crumbling beneath me. "When moon and blood combine in one," my mother recited, her voice heavy with weariness. "When alpha strength and Omega heart unite, the Council's reign shall be undone." "That's why they hunted you," Kaelin said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Not just for the moonstone, but because you were carrying his child." She nodded, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "I ran from your father, Kaelin, because I knew what our union would mean. War and death. I couldn't bear it." Her eyes filled with tears. "But all I did was delay the inevitable. Now the Council knows she exists, knows she can control the moonstone. They will not stop." Kaelin moved closer, his hand finding mine again, a solid, reassuring weight. "Let them come," he said, his voice a low, deadly promise. "They have hidden in the shadows for too long, manipulating our kind, setting us against each other." His gaze met mine, fierce and resolute. "Together, we can end their rule." "Together," I echoed, the word feeling surprisingly right on my tongue. Just days ago, I had been a single mother. "You was instinct, Eve. Earning your choice will be my privilege." The raw sincerity in his words disarmed me, warming a part of me I hadn't even known was cold. This fierce, powerful alpha was offering me a choice, something I suspected was not in his nature to do. My mother's hand tightened on mine. "Dawn is coming," she said, her eyelids drooping with exhaustion. "And with it, decisions." Kaelin nodded, stepping back. "Rest, Fiona. You are home now. You are under my protection." He looked at me. "Both of you." As he turned to leave, to organize his defenses and spread the word of what had happened, I felt that strange tether between us stretch once more. But now I understood it better. It wasn't just his claim, it was something deeper, a connection that had been waiting generations to be forged. I settled onto the edge of my mother's bed, holding her hand as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Outside, the moon hung low in the sky, its silver light spilling through the shattered window. In the distance, wolves began to howl, Kalen's pack, calling to one another, warning their enemies, guarding their home. Our home. I touched the moonstone, feeling its latent power hum beneath my fingertips. In a single day, my entire world had been turned inside out. I had awakened as an Omega in a werewolf pack, only to discover their Alpha King had already chosen me. Now I understood why. It wasn't just instinct or possession. It was prophecy. It was destiny. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself wondering what tomorrow would bring, and what it would feel like to stand beside Kalen, not just as his chosen Omega, but as his queen.